else goes on in the country unless somebody pays the bill. And we all talk about what the problems are, but we never really get down to the root problem. The root problem and the food that feeds all the problems we have comes from the same group of people. And the really problem is, and the root that feeds everything, is Americans is totally controlled, yeah, that's up on there, by a few families. And I'm taking this few kind of broad because about 1.5 million people own and control 40% of the world's wealth.
Hey.
That's 1% of the adult population control 40% of the entire wealth of the entire world. Now you think about that. That's not really very many, considering we have about 6 billion people in this world. Okay, and these families, through greed and the love of money, gain total control over monetary systems throughout the world. The love of money is the root of most evil. You can all imagine where I got that quote. This has caused most of the world's problems, and it really has. They just don't want to do it very long. So there's a reason why the economy started drying up. This power over the money gives them the power and the control over pretty near all businesses. And the ones they don't have control on, they have a mortgage on. Either through the federal government, the state government, or your local township or city government. By going to them or debt. They have the money and the power to control any election they want to, or to control any dictator they feel necessary in any country they want. And we've heard about that that's the real problem, is that federal action concedes the clear bounds of the Constitution. And that's why it happened. Because we are not the Congress's constituents anymore. The people who fund the elections are the real constituents. Because when it comes time to get a bailout, they didn't need very long to pass that law, did they? They didn't even need to write the bill first before they got it passed, did they? So who's the real constituents when they ask for something? It doesn't take long to get legislation passed, does it? Okay, their control of the money system and education system, which they do both, has led to pretty much all the errors we have in federal legislation and state legislation, because they get what they want, and what they want is not good for us. And they create all of this money, every penny of it, as interest-bearing loans to someone. All money, in the genus of money, is put on the books as a liability to somebody and an asset to somebody, and most of the time, one of each. We'll get into that a little more. Clear? Every action has consequences. And actions, when it comes to money, every loan has severe complications or consequences. And when all money is created as interest-bearing loans, and it is, there is simply no way to create the money to pay the interest. Because if you can only get anything by borrowing from somebody else, how do you get enough to pay them that back plus some interest? It can't be done. There's no way to do it. The money that we need to pay interest on can only be created as another loan. And that's not my opinion, that's what the United States Treasury told me. Therefore, the interest on the debt is never paid, it is just shifted to another borrower. And keeps on growing and growing and growing. And everybody noticed our debts kind of keep on growing and growing and growing. Click. Now this chart up here shows you the red line is how much the debt has grown. The blue line at the bottom is how much the income has gone up. How many people do you think that we can continue that forever and you still own anything? The next debt line over there shows you what the household debt relationship has went up to the income. Income 35 at the bottom. The household debt just going up like crazy. And that's the consequences of all money being created as interest-bearing debts. Now, I just had a conversation with a man that said he had no debts. And I said, that's great, you can do that, but not everybody can do that. Robert Rewall, Flow Director of the Board of Governors Flow of Funds in Washington, D.C., in the Board of Governors conference room, told me in person that you're right. Individually you can get out of debt, but collectively we cannot. You can't have any money unless somebody else is in debt. Now, you may have lots of money and have no debt, but that's only because somebody else has all the debt and paying interest on it, and you got their money. Now, how in the world are they ever going to pay anything back because you got their money and you think it's yours? Probably, in all honesty, it should be. But they have the debt and the interest on the debt, and they don't have the money. Somebody else has got it. The next will show you the financial statement of the United States. I got this information from, partly from the chart I just showed you, and mostly from a speech that David Walker, United States Controller General of the United States, given in Minneapolis. And according to that statement, at that time, it may have changed some, the total worth of the nation was around $38 trillion. The debt was not quite that high. It is now up to over $57 trillion. The unfunded obligations of the federal government alone are over $54 trillion. And that again comes from David Walker. I heard that live over Ludov's show one night. And according to the website of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the money supply at that time was $7.7 trillion. Do you really think you can borrow yourself out of that mess? I wouldn't think so. Click. This chart is a chart that I did the math on and figured out. I sent it to the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis and asked them if it seemed accurate, and they said it sure seemed accurate to them. This shows you the line in red going up is how much, well, we'll first take the blue line, or the brown line, the darker one. That's what the average family of four household income was in 1990. The red is how much their interest load was on that family. Now you can see how slowly the income went up and how great the interest load went up. By 2016, the interest alone will be greater than the total consumer income of everyone in America. And that chart's been confirmed after by the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. Now, this was done in 2003, I think, and of course we all know the income has gone down since then and the debt has gone up wildly. So obviously it's got to happen before then, but I didn't change my chart. That was bad enough for me. That's a start with. Now here's how all money is created. When someone needs money they can't capture by engaging in commerce, he goes to a bank, or she, and requests a loan. Isn't that basically true? The bank takes the borrower's promise to pay and puts it on the books as an asset. And then the bank puts its promise to pay into the person's checking account as a liability to the bank and an asset to the person. Now, both the bank and the borrower have both a new asset and a new liability. And brand new money has been created. Now, I did not put the liabilities on that chart for a reason. But yes, it is. When it happens today, every dollar is put on the books as both an asset and a liability to something. The problem is the bank does not pay any interest on their liabilities, and their liabilities are not court enforceable. But the borrower, he has to pay interest on his liabilities to the bank, correct? His promissory note he signed to get the loan. And that promissory note is court enforceable in any court in the land. They can come out and take anything you want. Do it in any means they want to, force or cohesion, or just ask you to tell you to get it. And if you do, that's fine. Okay, now you've got to really remember that. That's the most important thing to understanding the solution I'm going to give to you in a few minutes. That at this point in time, all money is put on the books as an asset and a liability of both parties. They both put up the debt. I'll get to your questions later. And the reason I didn't put that on for this presentation is because the way it should be done is the money should be put on the books as an asset to people, not as a debt. And it should represent their production, not how much they owe to the bank, but it should represent what they produced already. And that's what the whole thing is about that I'm